global fight against pollution and climate change, the IMO is working to reduce the impact of the shipping industry on the quality of the air that we breathe. For some time, ships have been required to burn fuels with a sulfur content of 0.1% while operating in emission control areas, ECAs. From the 1st of January 2020, the IMO has introduced a new global limit of 0.5% sulfur in fuel unless an exhaust gas cleaning system is fitted. This video outlines what the lower limit means and how to be compliant. In addition to the 2020 sulfur limit of 0.5% in open waters, all vessels that enter ECAs will be required to switch to fuels with a sulfur content of 0.1%. All vessels found to be in breach of this ruling, inside or outside of an ECA, may risk detention, loss of insurance cover, heavy fines, and possible imprisonment for those found responsible. So how to ensure compliance? One option would be to run vessels on compliant fuels, such as low-sulfur marine gas oil. Other choices could be to use alternative fuels such as ethanol, methanol, biofuel, and LNG. LNG carriers have long used the cargo boil-off as fuel, and a small but growing number of vessels have been converted or built to use LNG as fuel. The mechanical alternative is to invest in fitting exhaust gas cleaning or scrubber systems that will remove sulfur from the exhaust of HFO. There are three most commonly used types: hybrid, closed, and open loop. In all systems, the exhaust gases pass through a spray of seawater where the sulfur and particulates are captured and separated into sludge, which is sent to storage tanks. The wash water is either recycled using the closed loop system or discharged into the sea if using the open loop. But some ports and administrations do not allow open loop wash water to be discharged in their waters. And what happens should the scrubber break down? In the event of a system malfunction that lasts more than 1 hour, or if an accidental breakdown occurs, the vessel must inform flag, coastal and port states about the issues as quickly as possible and let them know what remedial action will be taken. Otherwise, the master and owner could face port states' enforcement actions. So switching to compliant fuels appears to be the simplest option, but there are a number of concerns, such as fuel availability. Key bunkering centres of Europe, North America and Asia are likely to be stocked. However, availability must be confirmed, particularly before entering smaller ports, and an alternative solution must be planned. Fuel quality. With a whole new range of fuels being manufactured, it's even more important to ensure that the fuel oil being bunkered is compliant and to the required ISO 8217 standard. MARPOL samples should be taken at the receiving ship's inlet bunker manifold in accordance with the IMO's 2009 sampling guidelines. However, these results are often received after the vessel has left port, leaving the ship with potential compliance issues. The IMO has therefore issued a circular encouraging that a party to MARPOL Annex 6 should take reasonable steps to ensure that fuel oil meets the SOLAS safety requirements of more than 60 degrees Celsius flash point and fuel oil quality requirements as set out in Regulation 18.3 of MARPOL Annex 6. Clean tanks. Bunker tanks must be cleaned prior to accepting the new 0.5% compliant fuel. Stability and incompatibility. One of the main concerns is the long-term storage stability and compatibility between different bunker stocks. Aromatic or paraffinic fuels may be incompatible, and if they commingle, the asphaltene content will combine into a sticky sludge within 48 hours, potentially blocking filters and fuel lines, resulting in complete engine failure. the optimum solution is to segregate the storage and handling of the fuels on board. Some vessels may have to be retrofitted with dual storage and handling systems, or switch to run permanently on marine gas oil. Risk of increased hazards during fuel switching. The management of fuel switching needs to be adjusted as compliant fuel has different viscosity temperature and pour point characteristics. Managing the new fuel requires a modification of operating procedures that must include reference to the engine maker's recommendations and updates. So what happens if compliant fuel is not available? In that case, vessels must submit a fuel oil non-availability report, FONAR. The FONAR is not a right to use high sulfur fuel. It's a report evidencing that there was no alternative than to purchase high sulfur fuel. It is then up to port state control to either accept the report or to investigate further. It's very important that all personnel, ashore and on board, are fully aware of the process and its implementation. Prior to the January 1, 2020 deadline, vessels should have run down their stocks of high sulfur fuel oil, ideally by the autumn of 2019, allowing a safe period to bunker with compliant fuel oil. IMO recommends that ships prepare a Ship Implementation Plan, SIP. Administrations and port state control may take into account the SIP when verifying compliance with the 0.5% sulfur requirement. Inspectors will check compliance with the 2020 Sulphur Cap regulations through the bunker delivery notes, related ships' logbooks and records, and by means of sampling from the fuel treatment lines. That there are written procedures on board covering fuel oil changeover operations where appropriate. Proof that scrubber systems are being tested appropriately and waste sludge disposed of correctly. If deficiencies are found against any of these items, action may be taken by the Port State Control Officer, which could include detention of the ship or other corrective measures. The 2020 Sulphur Cap is a landmark decision for both the environment, human health, and a fundamental change for the maritime industry, marking a new chapter for industry stakeholders, from charterers, ship operators and crew to suppliers.